was a biblical win, and it just took the stage.
Saturday, August 13th, 2011. A date those at the Indiana State Fair will never forget.
I can, clear as day, go through those memories in my head, second by second.
In an instant, a strong gust of wind led to tragedy. Heavy pieces of the grandstand stage collapsed on the fans.
Whether you were, a machinist, an accountant, everybody that was at the fair that night became a first responder.
Fairgoers worked side by side with first responders to help save lives.
My God's still getting someone out!
7 people died as a result of the collapse. More than 40 others injured and survived. In the wake of the horror, incredible stories of healing and hope.
You'll probably have to have a caretaker for the rest of your life, and that wasn't an option for me.
The doctor that was over me, she said, no, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna do what we need to do to figure out, because this girl, she's gonna live.
From the station working for you, this is a WRTV special. State Fair tragedy, 10 years later. Stories of survival, sorrow, and strength.
Welcome to the grounds of the Indiana State Fair. I'm Rafael Sanchez. The 2021 fair is underway, much like it was 10 years ago on the night of August 13th, 2011, when nearly 12,000 fans gathered at the grandstand, eagerly anticipating the concert from Sugar Land. But that all changed in a matter of seconds. At about 8:46, the weather took a turn. A strong gust of wind during a thunderstorm caused the structure supporting the spotlights and other equipment on the stage to collapse. It landed on the people in what was called the sugar pit, those closest to the stage. Underneath the grandstands stands a permanent memorial to the 7 people who died on the evening of August 13th, 2011. Here's the plaque. Their names are engraved. Alina Big Johnny, Nathan Bird, Glenn Goodrich, Jennifer Haskell, Christina Santiago, Megan Toothman, Tammy Van Dam. The plaque also reads, "May the Hoosier spirit continue to reside in all of us." That evening, more than 40 other people were injured, and they survived. As we mark a decade since that tragedy, we're bringing you stories of survival, sorrow, and strength. We'll also show you how the collapse changed safety standards for the industry. And you'll meet people from Indiana and across the country using their painful memories to help others. Like the mother and daughter, empowering people through faith and fitness. The daughter, 10 at the time, suffered a fractured skull. There's the hospital chaplain, who says being there that night led him to a deeper calling to a life of ministry and serving others. And there's the couple who rekindled their romance after decades of being apart, all because of what happened at the fairgrounds. We traveled to suburban Chicago to meet Alicia Brennan. Her life changed on August 13th, 2011, when she lost her wife, Christina Santiago. They were both in the front row of the sugar pit. Alicia survived a traumatic brain injury. It's taken her years to rise from the tragedy. A symbol of her survival, the tattoo on her chest of the Phoenix Rising.
The ashes, obviously the accident, they're always gonna be with me, but they're behind me. I realize that I can't let that consume me anymore.
What happened at the fair reset Alicia's path. They were difficult and dark days. And like the Phoenix, she's now helping others rise to better days.
Alicia Brennan had many choices, but felt a calling to do this.
This is where my life turned around for me for the better.
It's where she finds and uses the right materials. With an eye for details, she molds a solution.
This is the ultimate of helping someone.
Based on the journey you've been on, what do you say to someone who says, I just can't?
It takes time to heal whatever you're going through, for sure. And you've got to be in the right mindset to want to move forward. But that eventually that day will come. After the accident, I had nurses, PTs, OTs, everybody helping me out, friends, family, and their desire to help someone in need is what drove me to want to do the same thing.
August 13th, 2011, surviving the psychological and physical pain pushed her to a new beginning. She enrolled at Joliet Junior College in suburban Chicago, graduated in May 2018. The lady who once worked on foreclosures, now committed to a new purpose, opening doors of hope for pets and people.
I love what I do. I enjoy it so much.
Alicia makes prosthetics, some customized to capture an individual's favorite sports team.
A little bit more over here.
And it's teamwork that's behind every carefully handcrafted limb.
Everything that you do in here is going to be a positive change for someone. These people have most likely been told at some point down the line that they're not going to be able to do A, B, or C. I've been there, done that, and I won't let that happen to somebody else if I have the power to do so. It's definitely emotional.
Emotions were high when she decided to do an internship in the country of Bolivia in South America.
Look like we got a pretty good impression.
I think so. You can see that right there, then the tibia.
She needed to do this to graduate, but she did not speak the language. That wasn't necessary. Her heart and skills did all the talking. As this lady points out in Spanish, this is good. Many of the people that came to the clinic had a limb amputated because they were unable to afford health care to treat an illness. They traveled for miles with dreams of regaining their mobility, their confidence, their personal freedom. The smiles say it all.
That is the image that I'll never get out of my head. She had the biggest smile on her face that I've ever seen.
Back at home, she's also dedicated to making prosthetics for animals, molding, casting, and fitting those in need like Mercy and Woody the Wonder Dog.
He's got his new prosthetics on. Look at him go. Woohoo, Woody!
This is more than a pet project. It's a personal labor of love.
You know, sky's the limit from here.
She's grounded in her life experience that yesterday may have been difficult. Tomorrow can be better. And beyond that, the possibilities are endless.
It's a good life now. It is, you know, I get to help people every single day. I get to help animals on my free time. And just knowing how short life is probably the biggest motivator for me.
Alicia started a new job. She's now teaching students how to make prosthetics at her alma mater at Joliet Junior College. Alicia has also found love again. She'll mark her first wedding anniversary to her wife Gina in October. Everyone has their own personal story. What they saw, what they did to help others, how they survived. It's become a part of who they are. Here's a look back at what unfolded 10 years ago.
As you can see to the west, there are some clouds. We are all hoping for the best, that the weather is going to bypass us, but there's a very good chance that it won't.
No one was on stage. Sugarland was getting ready to come out. They made an announcement and said that they were just kind of waiting to see what was going to happen with the weather.
Yes, I am at the State Fairgrounds, Indianapolis, Indiana. The stage in front of the grandstand just collapsed. I don't know if there's anyone underneath it or not.
Just a big cloud of dust came from wind, and all of a sudden you just look up, and it happened so fast. It just came down, and you saw people running, and people, next thing you know, you look back, and there's people underneath the stage trying to get out.
It was insane because it was complete chaos. Nobody was moving, and then people who were moving were climbing over each other. We couldn't get off the grandstands fast enough.
She was probably about 4 years old, I would say. Laceration on her arm, and you see the bone. I took my shirt off. We made a tourniquet for her. There was another fellow, flat out on his face, a laceration to his head and neck and everything that we had to get all braced up and in there.
It's one of those things that you see it and it happens and you just ask, did it really happen?
Change came in many forms as a result of the collapse, especially how to make future similar outdoor events safer here and around the country.
In the week following the tragedy, the state hired 2 firms to conduct independent investigations. Washington, D.C.-based Witt & Associates, a public safety and crisis management company. Its focus, the state fair's preparedness and response, while New York-based engineering company Thornton Tomasetti led the structural portion of the investigation. The Tomasetti report found that the stage rigging was not strong enough to meet building codes. It should have been able to withstand winds of 68 miles per hour. The winds that night were about 59 miles per hour. The findings are playing a key role in making sure universal safety standards are in place at fairs, festivals, and concert venues.
WRTV Investigates Kara Kenny now joins us to tell us what she found out. Kara?
Raphael, the State Fair tragedy was a game changer when it comes to safety, especially when it comes to large outdoor events that have to take into account severe weather. We talk with local, state, and national officials about what's changed over the past decade and whether we're really any safer.
The sights, the sounds, the summer breeze. There's nothing like an outdoor concert in central Indiana. With summer storms a nearly daily reality, event organizers have a lot to think about.
We look at it days in advance. We look at the day of, obviously hours in advance. We make a call to say like, hey, this isn't going to work.
Matt Ablanup is the property and risk manager for Indy Parks, which puts on 70 free summer concerts and movies a year. High winds, lightning, tornadoes are all threats they plan for.
We have announcements, PAs, all that kind of stuff where we're going to announce to get people back to their vehicles, or if we have obviously a location that's nearby in case of a tornado in which we can get them inside for shelter purposes.
The State Fair tragedy a decade ago is something Indy Parks leaders take into account.
You know, we obviously evaluate every situation to say how can we better ourselves.
An international group, the Event Safety Alliance, was created in direct response to the 2011 tragedy.
How big was this tragedy in terms of shaping the future of safety at outdoor events?
It was monumental.
Vice President Steve Edelman says the Event Safety Alliance deconstructed what went wrong at the fairgrounds and produced a safety guide for the event industry.
More than 350 pages of robust guidance. The guiding principle is life safety first. So everybody's familiar with the idea, the show must go on. The Event Safety Alliance is pushing back hard against exactly that. Life safety should come first.
The guide also focuses on improved communication to make sure decision makers are getting the facts. The industry guidance is also much more clear now when it comes to steps for responding to severe weather.
So we have an entire section on creating what are called severe weather trigger charts so that the decisions become automatic rather than having to think it through.
The 2011 tragedy also prompted industry-wide improvements regarding how entertainment structures are designed, constructed, and inspected. The Indiana Department of Homeland Security is tasked with inspecting stage setups and does 5,000 inspections a year. State Homeland Security Executive Director Steve Cox explains the state made changes shortly after the 2011 tragedy to ensure the safety of structures at large venues. In 2017, those rules became permanent, including establishing construction requirements for outdoor event equipment.
Emergency response plans have to be developed by those venues.
to make sure that plans are in place to evacuate crowds of people, to make sure that their safety is at the forefront of everybody's mind.
Would you say we're safer now than we were 10 years ago?
Yes, I would say that. We want Hoosiers to be able to feel safe anytime they attend an event of any size, right?
When you go to an event, know that every detail, from the setup to the inspection to the venue safety plan, has all been carefully crafted with your safety in mind. And the State Fair tragedy helped shape all of it.
Concerts are no longer held in the grandstand. After 2011, the decision was made to no longer use temporary roof structures over the stage, and all concerts were moved here to the free stage. And that's where fans can see shows today.
We all change. Our looks are always going to change, but the heart doesn't, and the soul doesn't. And ultimately, that's what matters.
The State Fair tragedy led to finding love again for one man, if only for a while. A survivor shares his story of a rekindled romance that all started with a Facebook post the day of the concert that never happened. You're watching a WRTV special, State Fair tragedy 10 years later. Stories of survival, sorrow, and strength.
Greg Johnson still has his wristband for the 2011 Sugar Land State Fair concert. As a big fan, he showed up hours early. He was in the sugar pit, right in front of the stage. When the rigging collapsed, he witnessed the horror of the night. Greg says other survivors that he knows are still struggling emotionally and physically.
Some people still don't have their memory back. Some people lost limbs. Others just have never been able to get over it, and they've turned to illegal substances. So there's still a lot of people going through a lot of things, and it's been 10 years.
Greg and the other survivors share a bond like no other. They've often met at the Grandstand Memorial to reconnect, to reaffirm their friendship, to deal with their raw emotions. For Greg, August the 13th is a burden that led to a blessing he did not think would ever happen.
Greg Johnson values every card, every letter, from Linda Vitalo to Randy. The love is visible. The box contains his most treasured possession from November 1989.
I had to have a picture of Linda the day I met her.
So when you see that picture now, you see what?
Oh boy. Dreams, happiness, anticipation. Once you realize that you're with somebody that cares about every ounce of you as a person, there's no better feeling.
They dated 2 years and went their separate ways. On August 13th, 2011, Greg posted on Facebook he was going to see his favorite group, Sugar Land, at the State Fair. The group never performed due to the rigging collapse. When that happened, Linda called Greg for the first time in years, worried about his well-being. Greg, who was in the sugar pit, was not injured. When they connected, their reunion would take them on a new journey. Both were divorced. Fate rekindled their romance.
2 decades hadn't passed. And it was immediate. It was so exhilarating and fun to feel that way again.
The Hoosier and Chicago girl made the best of every minute. It was all about mutual respect, long talks and walks, and trips to her favorite spot, Nashville in Brown County. Linda would be his saving grace, especially every August 13th. August 13th, the day of the State Fair nightmare, is also Greg's birth date. It was there he turned 54. So to keep his mind off that day, Linda every year made it a point to find something special to do with her guy, whether going to a sporting event or a fun place to eat.
She made every day fun. She made every event more bright, more just a good time.
That also included many visits to the state fairgrounds. With Linda at his side, everything was okay. Their love would be tested in 2014.
Hysterically cry. She says, I have stage 4 breast cancer.
So the fight was to begin.
The fight was to begin.
It would be a 7-year battle. Linda would beat the first cancer. After her mastectomy, Greg helped with her daily care.
What somebody needs in a time like that is somebody that loves them, somebody that cares about them.
She also had a tumor removed from her brain. A moment of relief. But the cancer, it refused to surrender. It spread to her spine and other parts of her body.
Finally, we were told, Linda's not going to live. We had so many plans, so many plans. It wasn't meant to be.
Linda never gave up on love or life. It was on display at this moment, March the 1st, as she sang happy birthday to her teenage son.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Jenna. 15. Happy birthday to you. One out. Yay!
Oh boy. 2 weeks later, the mother of 2 passed away on March 17th. She was 56 years young. The past few months have been a blur, bittersweet. So Greg has leaned on the music of Sugarland. In 2018, he met the group at a concert in Louisville. The words to their song Love is comforting all the time. The lyrics remind him that his love with Linda was 1 in a million, one he could call home.
So no, this isn't a tragic tale of someone losing the love of their life at the Sugarland concert. Rather, it's a story of someone actually being reunited with their soulmate because of it. It was an honor. This was an amazing woman, and she loved me.
Greg keeps the love alive by keeping his promise to Linda to watch over her teenage son, Dennis, and her 92-year-old mom, Ann.
Still ahead, a woman who helps run her family's food truck at the fair had to transition to her day job when tragedy struck. She knows better than many that death can come at any time.
Welcome back to the Indiana State Fairgrounds. One of the big attractions here at the fair is the food. One of the food vendors here in 2011 and still here today also knows and deals with death every day in her professional life. WRTV's Nikki Dementri joins us now to explain how those two worlds collided on the night of the collapse.
All of this consumes Alfie McGinty's August days, but it's a total switch from her day job as the Marion County Chief Deputy Coroner. But if you spend just a little time with McGinty, you quickly realize she's never really off the clock.
Alfie McGinty wasn't supposed to run her family business.
Barbecue sugar mamas.
But things happen.
We got those turkey legs for you too.
And here she is years later, running the food truck her dad started, Gobble Gobble.
It has been a big growth for our family.
The State Fair is the only event for the food truck and also a family tradition.
2 corn dogs? Yep, thank you.
Part of the reason it's a once-a-year gig is that McGinty has another job. And on the back of this truck is a hint at that day job, one she's had for more than 20 years with the Marion County Coroner's Office.
I have a passion for helping and assisting families who are dealing with grief and loss. That's the first thing. That's my first priority. The food truck is the second priority.
Work always calls.
Actually, just put put that in my office for now.
And as you see, McGinty always answers. And that was no different the night of the collapse.
All of a sudden, there was the collapse that we could actually see, not knowing that people were still in the area.
The food truck has parked in the same spot for the last 20 years. From behind is a clear view of the grandstands. And within a matter of moments 10 years ago, McGinty went from chef to coroner.
I stopped at my car to see what I had in my car, and then just walked straight on over.
She says once she heard there were injuries, she knew there was a possibility of death. And sadly, that came true.
I absolutely had to turn off the family business, shut that down, and really just go to work and conduct death investigations, unfortunately, for that tragic day. That is so sad, still stuck in my head.
McGinty says the experience of that night and the investigations that followed completely changed the way she does both jobs.
It changes your perspective on everything. It changes your perspective in understanding and knowing that at any time, anything can happen.
While McGinty looks forward to the fair every year, she also takes time to remember the lives lost 10 years ago.
Looking back, my only hope was that we were able to help those families.
McGinty tells me she and her staff are always on standby. And one thing she can take away from that night is to always be prepared, because anything can happen at any place, anytime, and to remain professional. Raphael?
The State Fair tragedy led to multiple lawsuits. Eventually, there was a multi-million-dollar settlement with the state and other related groups, with the victims' families and the survivors. The investigations looked into many aspects following the tragedy, this one specifically on communication. WRTV Investigates' Kara Kenny takes a closer look at the confusion that night and the improvements made since. Kara?
Experts say the most important thing when it comes to your safety is you. When you go to an event like the State Fair, have an emergency plan in place. For example, if you get separated from your family, know where the exits are. Use your phone and keep tabs on the weather. And also listen for any emergency or safety announcements.
Communication is key, and experts noted it was a failure the night of the State Fair tragedy. In the WIT report that reviewed the 2011 collapse, it revealed at 8:39 p.m. the National Weather Service issued a severe weather warning for the area. But the report shows the fair's leadership never received the information. An announcement told fans that threatening weather was approaching, but Sugarland was coming out shortly.
So just a quick heads up before the show starts. If there is a point during the show where we have to stop the show on stage, what we'd like to have you do is calmly move towards the exits.
A spokesperson for the State Fair at the time said they were about to evacuate.
And we were on our way to the grandstand to make that announcement, to find the announcer, to make that announcement that this isn't just a suggestion, we are evacuating the grandstand. In those 3 minutes, that's when that undetectable straight line wind or weather phenomenon occurred and hit the grandstand stage and brought down the roof.
The stage rigging collapsed, killing 7 people and injured more than 40 others. The WIT report recommended the State Fair have 1 safety officer on staff. They took it a step further and now have 3 safety officers on staff, in addition to a chief operations officer who's responsible for safety planning and prevention. The State Fair also made improvements to its communication and notification systems. They now use a texting system to alert staff of weather updates. Each building has a staff member on site specifically designated to direct guests to shelter in the event of severe weather. The fair also uses its PA system to warn guests of impending weather and direct them where to go.
The Indiana State Fair declined to speak with us on camera about safety, but a spokesperson tells us that all vendor employees and volunteers have to complete safety training.
There wasn't anybody there that night that wasn't trying to help someone. Everybody was doing what they could to help the person next to them, whatever way possible.
Hoosiers from all walks of life sprang into action to help save lives, not only first responders. Still ahead, 3 medical professionals share their memories.
Indiana's a special place. It's not everywhere that we would have seen that response and that reaction. I cannot tell you how proud I am to be the employee of 6.5 million people like that.
That was then Governor Mitch Daniels, speaking at a memorial service 2 days after the collapse. He praised everyone from all walks of life who rushed in to help. From concert goers to first responders to hospital workers. It was a night of teamwork. We spoke with 2 paramedics and a nurse about the unforgettable incident.
I think the hardest part of the whole night for me was just knowing that you couldn't help everybody that needed help. That's where your training kicks in and you try to help the people that you can help the most, but it still is an unsettling feeling when you see somebody that's injured, somebody that's hurt, and you have to walk past them. You don't want them to feel like you're not important, but you have to walk past them and go to somebody who's hurt even more. And that's a troubling feeling, is to know you can't do that and just walk past people that are hurt.
You look over and the stage is collapsed, but there's like hundreds of people around the stage trying to lift the stage up. And you don't see that. So in a way that was, I guess, kind of a calming thing, because everybody, you knew then that everybody was trying to pitch in.
And I think the initial panic was from the devastation of what everybody saw, that they couldn't imagine anybody, A, would survive that, and B, it had to be more than the amount that was transported.
You can train, but when the time comes for it, you don't really think about what you're doing. You just, especially something that big, you just go into automatic pilot, you just get it done.
It was a crazy night, and I hope it never happens again. I know Indiana weather is really pretty unpredictable, but I just hope that that's something we never have to have this conversation again.
As a first responder, you know, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that night for being a human being and loving each other and taking care of each other. In the immediate aftermath of those things, you didn't really get the opportunity to do, but you know, all these years later, that's one thing I would like to say to the people of Indianapolis is thank you for loving one another that night.
We thank them for their service that evening and every single day and night on the job. In all, IEMS transported more than 40 patients. Here at the grandstands, one of the many concert goers who jumped into action to help people that night says that he learned the importance of leaving a legacy and having an impact. It's something he works at every day as he walks the halls of IU Methodist Hospital. WRTV's Nikki Dementri shares his story.
Thomas McDorr says it was all a part of God's plan and the driving force behind becoming a trauma chaplain here at IU Methodist Hospital. Now, that night 10 years ago changed his life forever. Now he's sharing the why behind his commitment to helping families through some of their darkest days.
You really aren't promised tomorrow, and I'd heard that a lot of times before, but it became very real to me that night.
That night was August 13th, 2011.
It changed me.
It was a night Thomas McDorr says he thinks about every day.
I can, clear as day, go through those memories in my head, second by second.
The Georgia native was there in the grandstands with his then fiance. Sugarland to McDorr was a little piece of home. The band is also from the Peach State. But as we all know now, that performance never happened.
I told her to stay in her seat, and I ran down and ran towards the stage to help anyone that I could.
McDorr says the first person he found was not alive, and neither was the next. He remembers taking off his shirt to help stop a child from bleeding.
What struck me so much about that night was how many people were praying and crying out to God. In people's worst moments, for people of faith, tend to turn towards God for meaning, for help, for strength.
For 5 years, McDorr avoided anything tied to that night. He says yes, he got married, graduated Bible college, and got a job, but he was just going through the motions.
There was this moment of, okay, what am I doing with my life? And what can I do that would make me feel fulfilled and would be a meaningful work for me?
That's when he decided to become a hospital chaplain.
Since the very first day walking into the hospital, I knew I belonged. I'd found what I was meant to do.
For the last 4 years, McDour's job as a trauma chaplain is to work with Hoosiers facing life-changing situations.
Coming into this work with that perspective of like, I know where these patients have come from.
Although he says he'll never understand the why of that night, this was all a part of God's plan.
I would have never been a chaplain today had it not been for that moment.
McDour is now walking the same hospital hallways that were filled with families, doctors, and nurses 10 years ago, now as part of his calling to help others.
When I come in, I know this is what I'm meant to do, and I have something to give to these people.
McDour says he's never seen nor heard from any of the victims that he helped that night at the stage collapse, but his message to them, your pain and your trauma is not forgotten.
Knowing that I was never alone because of Jesus. Jesus, I believed him for my healing. I believed that he would restore me, and I knew that no matter what, I could rely on him.
Relying on faith, a constant source of strength for a mother and daughter severely injured at the fair, and how it's led them to help others live their best lives.
When you see, a bunch of strangers that have no idea who's under there running to their rescue, not knowing if anything else was going to come down, they put their lives in danger to come and, come to our aid.
Jade Carrero and her mom, Shannon Walcott Radden, are grateful to the Good Samaritans and healthcare professionals who saved their lives. Shannon and Jade were in the sugar pit. Jade was only 10 years old at the time. They suffered multiple severe injuries and spent weeks in the hospital. This place is all about families, and this mother and daughter are a dynamic duo. They're upbeat, unapologetic about their passion for their faith and their unconditional love for each other and their family across the country.
This is their escape. An endless stretch of surf and sand along the Gulf of Mexico. Fort Walton Beach, Florida, is where this mother and daughter relax and re-energize with family.
But we just love hanging out, going to the beach together.
I could not be more happy. I could not be more joyful. I couldn't be more blessed.
Jade Carrero and her mother, Shannon Walcott Radden, suffered severe injuries at the State Fair stage collapse. Shannon spent 2 weeks in the hospital mending broken bones.
Those obstacles taught me so much about turning over every leaf, turning over every opportunity that's out there for you, and being sure that you don't stop when the first door closes.
Jade needed 7 weeks of medical care to recover from a traumatic brain injury.
I was connected to tubes or something. They were debating whether or not I was going to live, what to do next. The doctor that was over me, she said, no, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna do what we need to do to figure out, because this girl, she's gonna live.
For both, the physical and emotional healing took years. From their experience, they now empower and excite many others about fitness and faith.
Praise the Son, the one and only Son, who takes my sin away.
Jade is a singer working on a Christian-based album. After attending Bible college in 2018, she later gave her life to the Lord. She now serves as a worship leader at Blueprints Church in West Palm Beach.
To fulfill the law and prophets, to a virgin came the word. From a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt.
I get to do everything that I feel like the Lord has created me for, He has called me for, and really, it doesn't get any better than that.
She shares her passion for music ministry with her favorite guy, Luke. They tied the knot on August 7th, 2020.
It is really amazing to be able to share so many things with the person that I get to spend the rest of my life with.
Hi guys, Shannon here with Shadow Fitness.
Her mother, Shannon, connects with people online, encouraging them to lead healthier lives through cycling.
We have 10 bikes available.
For Shannon, cycling was one of the few activities she could do while recovering from her injuries.
You shouldn't just get into fitness because you just want to get your 30 minutes in and be finished. It needs to be something that you enjoy, that you're immersed in. It should be an experience.
We rode 52 miles from Dayton to Cincinnati in honor of our fallen first responders and military personnel.
And I really want people to be on the bike or be on a treadmill and be enjoying their life.
The scenic view of the beach behind me is an image that they enjoy the most. They still think of those images from 10 years ago at the Indiana State Fair when the stage collapsed. They have a message for the first responders and all those that came to their rescue.
Wow, thank you for running into the fire and not away.
They really showed that they were in our corner and they really did want to help us. And that is just so amazing to know that without them, we may not be here.
Life, like the waves, is unpredictable, full of highs and lows. And because of that, Shannon and Jade exercise the right to faithfully make a difference.
Don't give up and just keep pushing because you're gonna see the breakthrough. There is a breakthrough waiting for you.
So compassion is definitely my first go-to. The second go-to is simply that I know you can do this. I don't know how you're gonna do this. I'm here to hold your hand and help you, but I know you can become a warrior of this situation.
Shannon has also started a non-for-profit. It's called Race on Fire. It's all about sharing positivity and supporting change around the world.
Coming up, the young doctor who ran toward the danger 10 years ago and how that event shaped the medical career she's pursuing today.
Ten years ago, Dr. Stephanie Gardner was a young resident physician at IU Health. She took her husband to the Sugar Land concert as a gift for his birthday. For her and for so many others who were here, it was a life-changing event. WRTV's Amanda Starantino had an opportunity to speak with her. Amanda?
Little did Dr. Gardner know that attending the fair that night would alter the course of her entire career and take her yet a decade later to the site of another collapse.
It's a moment engraved in her memory, a tragic accident that would change her life.
I was there front row of the stand, saw the stage come down.
Dr. Stephanie Gardner's natural instincts immediately kicked into high gear.
At the time, kind of ran forward really without any thought as to like what to do. I just, went. Ran forward.
Just 1 year into her residency at IU Health, the young doctor used the skills she had to help the victims of the fallen stage debris in whatever way she could.
I remember feeling like a total deer in the headlights when I ran up to this group and this lady was unconscious, and I stood there for just a second and I almost had this like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I should just turn around and leave. Like, there's nothing I can do. And at that second, the security officer came up beside me and said, I found you a doctor. I found you a doctor. And they all turn around and look at me with these huge eyes. And I was like, oh shit, oh shit. Right? I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Right. Yeah. I don't even have a stethoscope. I have nothing. What can I even offer at this point? Yeah.
You've been only like a doctor for probably a couple months at that point.
Yes. Yeah. And so I had this like, oh my gosh, don't show them how scared you are. Like, say something. So I was like, well, let's use these chairs and get her out of here. And hopefully they didn't notice how scared I was. But I think that was also my inspiration to learn emergency medicine and pre-hospital medicine and not ever feel that clueless again.
But in those moments of action mixed with fear, Dr. Gardner learned an extremely valuable lesson, one that would affect her future career. With that first real-life experience of being thrown into disaster and mass-gathering medicine, she was inspired to pursue an EMS track to work in pre-hospital medicine.
As is probably typical of interns or young doctors, I thought I kind of knew what I was doing until that experience. And then just realized that out of hospital or pre-hospital medicine is a completely different ballgame. And knowing what to do in a hospital doesn't mean you know what to do when you're out in the field and you don't have, computers and nurses and order sets and all that stuff.
Now, Dr. Gardner is an ER physician and the EMS medical director at Ascension St. Vincent, where she also trains paramedics and firefighters. Her passion also led her to serve with Indiana Task Force 1, the search and rescue team, as a medical team manager. Just this summer, her position with Task Force 1 took her to Surfside, Florida to assist in the deadly condo collapse.
We, first responders, are the type of people who, when we see tragedy and we see disaster, we run towards it, right? And that's not something that I can teach students. It's not something that I can tell you how to do. You either are that type of person or you aren't. And as first responders, we are. And I guess that was something I learned about myself. And one of the reasons that I've loved EMS and I learned more about it. And I've really spent my career doing pre-hospital emergency services.
Dr. Gardner has been on 3 other deployments with Indiana Task Force 1 to assist with Hurricanes Matthew, Dorian, and Delta. But it all started 10 years ago at the fair with her natural instincts to run towards tragedy to help others.
You can find the stories we've shared with you right now at WRTV.com/State Fair Tragedy. We have a special section that also includes the investigation reports, additional pictures, and more. You can also watch this program again by downloading the WRTV app on your favorite streaming device.